Hello, I'm Graham Fitch, coming to you from Steinway Hall in London for Pianist magazine. And I'm going to be talking in this segment about classical period playing. I'm sitting in front of this beautiful monster of a Steinway concert grand, a Model D. And the music was written not for this instrument, but for a completely different type of piano as it evolved gradually through history. So we have to temper some of the things that we might want to do, or some of the things that we're instructed to do in the score. And I think classical period, sometimes people have problems with articulation. You know, we're used to playing legato. There's a long legato line that suits this instrument so well, but that doesn't really work for Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven. So what do we do about those little short slurs that we find throughout the period? What do we do about touches, dynamics, sometimes the absence of dynamics? What do we do? So those are some questions. Ornamentation, embellishment, a huge subject. I'm not going to be able to cover very much in the short space of time that I've got open to me here. Pedaling is another thing that we have to consider. So let me start to talk a little bit about touches. So if I can just kind of make species out of touches, we've got a plain vanilla legato first. One finger lifts as the next one goes down, right? And we've got legatissimo, where the finger lifts just after the next one goes down. And that gives us a really good, beautiful connection, like an overbound connection. Then we've got staccato, a generic staccato, maybe half sound, half silence. We've got staccatissimo, really short, which we don't use too much. It's a little bit violent and we don't tend to hear the pitches so well. We've also got a whole variety of non-legato touch. That was 3/4, let's say 3/4 sound, 1/4 silence, or could even be 7/8. Now that sensitivity, that particular sensitivity, that non-legato, we use a lot of the time in classical period music. The default touch was non-legato for a while. So as we go through some of these examples, I'm just going to pull out a few things here and there. Let me start off with the D minor fantasy of Mozart, particularly in regard to the opening section with the pedal. So I think we can have the pedal down for the whole of the first two bars, one harmony. Change. Keep it. You may say, well, that's actually a little bit murky, it's a bit muddy. And I might agree with you in this particular space on this particular piano. So I have the option of changing here, change there, and again here if you like. But when you get a little bit later into the piece, just at the end of that section, it's quite feasible to keep the pedal down. Throughout. Now, I don't think that works on our modern instrument. So what are our choices? Well, we could just clear the pedal at some point. Maybe here. Leaves it a little dry at the end. Maybe I could adjust my pedal by vibrating it. That was better. I'm doing a little bit of flutter pedaling there, just as I come down my second bar. The other option, which may seem a little naughty, but actually does a really good job, is just to hold on to those notes by hand. I'm not saying I would do that, but it's not unfeasible. Because what we're after is the sound. and it's not illegal, as we will discover, to do a little bit of finger pedaling. More on that later. So in the Adagio, do we pedal this? But I do want to be clear here. And I do want to hear that rest. Lift. Now Mozart's gone to the trouble of writing a staccato over there and a slur there. We need to be able to hear that. Does that need to be super short? No, it doesn't. It happens to be marked with a staccato wedge, which scholars have understood. There's no difference in Mozart between a staccato dot and a staccato wedge. There may be with other composers, but with Mozart, the consensus is it just means short. But how short is it? I don't think so. That sounds like a singer with hiccups, you know. Just slightly separated is good. Rest. Really expressive. No, I don't want too deep of a pedal because I want to hear a little bit of clarity there. I can hear string playing going on there. I want to pull out something that confuses musicians, confuses pianists. Bar 17, we have the staccato dots under a slur. It doesn't mean short, it actually means long. It intensifies, that intensifies the sound. So what I'm doing there is it's sort of like diaphragmatic breathing. I happen to pedal on each one. Change, 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 and that's great. I want a little resonance there, you know. And certainly here, I wouldn't think twice about holding my pedal down through this. When you come to here, I'm being very clear with my tattino, kind of anxious music, isn't it there? And in the left hand, there's no connection here, but I'm keeping my hand inside the key, so it's separated. The sounds are separated, but not too much. Not staccato, but non-legato. So we do need, I think we do need in the modern age to understand a little bit about historically informed performance practice. I don't have the capacity in the time I've got here to delve into it too much. So I can do no better than recommend you look up Robert Levin. Anything that Robert Levin has done on YouTube is fascinating for us, for pianists. He's a pianist and a forte pianist and a scholar and an entertainer. He's great to watch. And of course, Malcolm Bilson, a fantastic musician, a fantastic communicator. If you just do look up two things, look up Malcolm Bilson's Knowing the Score series of videos and Playing the Score. It will open up a whole world to you of performance practice. I think there's two publications that we should know about. C.P.E. Bach, the Essay on the True Art of Playing Keyboard Instruments, 1753, and Daniel Gottlob Turk, the Klavierschule of 1789, important historical documents. Let me pass through that one. So I think what I can do is to have a look at the slow movement of K330 Mozart and just try and make sense of some of these indications. So I have my portato, the staccato under the slur. So make them long, make the middle one stronger because it's on the beat. Now there's a little gap there and a little gap there. Do I want to make that obvious? The gap's obvious. I don't think so. It's a little bit like speech, you know, where the airflow is interrupted by a consonant. Separate here. Now you may think that's a little bit pedantic, and possibly it is a little bit pedantic to do too much. If you don't like the holes in the line, like that, and I could understand you might not, then there are a couple of solutions. You could get softer through the slur, and then play this stronger. So that does the job, but don't do this. That's a kind of romantic gesture of the, long line. So we have to be aware of this. Generally, the ornaments are on the beat. I've got an appoggiatura there. The point of it is to intensify the octave jump, isn't it? If you were to sing that octave. Now, I'm not making these staccatos too short, just separating them. I don't want, it's not a chimpanzee, expressive. So Mozart wrote this. On the repeat, I could do something like that. Now, over the double bar line here, pairs of notes, appoggiatura, expressive. Don't play legato, not this. That would be quite wrong. Tia, tia, tia. Sometimes it's helpful to use fingering that, I don't like to use the word forces, but we can't actually connect with this fingering. If I use 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, I have to make a little tiny break. Try and play legato, but and you can hear the articulation coming through quite clearly. Now, finger pedaling is something that we use all the time on the piano without necessarily being invited. Sometimes the composer writes, in an Alberti bass pattern, something like this. It's quite kosher to hold onto the pinky finger to create the resonance. Because I don't really want pedal there, it would muddy it too much. So I've got here Kirchhoff 333, first movement of Mozart. So I like, some people might not do this, but I like a little bit of resonance. Now, that B flat in bar 5 doesn't have a marking. That's a slur, but this has got no marking on it. It's an allegro movement. This period of music history, we would disconnect it. Little staccato. Now, you'll probably notice that at the beginning, I like to make an articulation between the D and the C. I don't think this is very stylistic to do this, but there as well. But if you remember back to the beginning of this demonstration where I was talking about the non-legato, this is legato because it's slurred. You see, the gap is tiny. Always with the appoggiatura, strong, weak, and you can do that through the wrist. Now start to lift up. And that releases the weight. Legato, here legato, pairs. Now here we've got no marking, so is this legato or is it non-legato? Well, I like to go for a non-legato, but it's not staccato. There's no discernible gap between any of these notes. It's not that, but just very articulate. Right, so that's a non-legato. Then maybe the bass line here could be slightly separated. And There we find staccato dots. Later on in the next phrase, we've got no markings. Let me show you. There we've got markings. Here, got no markings there. Do I play that all in with one touch, this right hand? I would tend to look at the broken thirds there as being less legato than the scaly bits. So I'm modifying my touch depending on the type of patterns that I find in the score. Right, okay, Beethoven, the last movement of the Pathetique Sonata. So many people miss these articulation marks. So here we've got staccato, right? There, Beethoven's gone to the trouble of separating tia from. So we would want to sound a little effortful. Not too legato there because there's no marking there. Here we've got slurs. I like to overhold a little bit. And here underhold, if there is such a word. Slightly separated there. But I'm mostly interested in what happens at the end of bar 6 and bar 7. Tia, separate, staccato. I so often hear it played like this, which makes it sound like, you know, a skip through the forest, but it's actually pathos. Tia-pa, tia-pa, tia-pa. There's a kind of breathlessness to it that comes out only when we observe the articulation. Embellishment on repeats, I've already looked a little bit at that. I don't think any player of period instruments or any 18th century player would do a repeat the same way. It just wouldn't have been done. We're squeamish about it, I think, because we don't really know what we are doing. We can just add maybe little turns, trills, arpeggiations, that counts as an ornament. K331. On the repeat, I could do that with a turn. Don't forget that articulation. Maybe in the next phrase, a trill there. Start on the upper note, please, with trills. And then perhaps I just arpeggiate. Maybe just the first one. Here we've already got on the beat. That's what Mozart gives us. But perhaps a cheeky little filling in. These are all possibilities. With articulation, if you look at variation 1, we have to separate this group. So none of this. It's flabby here as well. No, take the time, take the effort to make that articulation clear. Again, you can use a fingering that kind of compels you to articulate. Move the hand. So 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. Try to play legato, and you'll have about the right amount of separation. Now, finger pedaling we've talked about a little bit with Alberti basses. I've got in front of me Haydn's gorgeous F major sonata, Hoboken 23, the second movement thereof. Now, if I did this with no pedal and no finger pedal, I think you wouldn't find any beauty in this piece. And after all, what is music for if not to express beauty and wonder? We don't want to express correctness. That's nothing worse than being correct. So let me be correct. Again, don't copy this, please. Dry sound. So maybe I can use pedal. Let's try. Already not good because I've got And then, who wants that? So I can, by overholding a completely legitimate touch that's impossible to notate and that every keyboard player in the period would have known about. So I'm using discrete touches of pedal as well as the finger pedaling. When I say as well as, in addition to, so maybe a little pedal there, but not there. Certainly not here, but maybe there. You know, it's not illegal. Also, we sometimes get something in the right hand. I've got here 3-3-1 again. Let me just make sure I've got the Kirkle number. Yes, the A major. So in variation 2, this is this. That one. In the second half, the left hand is spiky. The right hand's marked with a slur, a long slur. It's kind of unusual for Mozart to write so long of a slur, but I can finger pedal through that. And that's perfectly, again, kosher and legitimate. This would be dry, wouldn't it? Don't think I want that. Just by way of conclusion, in the ornaments, I think we've already talked about upper note starts to trills. Appoggiaturas on the beat, please. Not, don't do that. So trill patterns. Termination usually goes on a trill in the classical period. Even if the composer hasn't written it, it's just kind of standard practice to terminate the trill. So another publication I can recommend by Alfred, very, very excellent publishing house. It's called Ornamentation, a Question and Answer Manual. And you'll also find quite a lot of information on all of these subjects on the online academy, practicingthepiano.com. It's been wonderful to be with you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this exploration on the classical period. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.